Hi, I'm Alex Pault, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Talking Timepieces, where we talk about watch collecting and horology. Today I wanted to talk about whether or not it would be worth buying a Rolex vintage 36 millimeter watch. Now, they're out there, and it's an inexpensive way to get into Rolex ownership, but there are things you have to think about. For example, nothing vintage Rolex has got a really great bracelet. They've got hollow end links and stamped buckles. But obviously, the classic Rolex looks and quality are still in the product. It's just that these are not as sophisticated products as they are today. So let's turn the camera around and take a close-up look at this and talk about the other aspects of the watch that you'd consider if you're going to buy one. All right. Here we are, a little vintage Rolex box. I mean, if you're going to buy a vintage piece, you should try to get box and papers, if only for the residuals. If you are buying it for yourself and you really, really don't care, you should still try to get the box and papers because it will help your residuals, right? And this one's got a complete box and paper set, right? Warranty, it's even got the old school paper registration form and all. So this is a kosher full Rolex kit. Now, let's see. The old packaging, very nicely done. And it is a good presentation, for a vintage piece. It's, old Rolex boxes do look nice. Some would say the old Rolex box with the real wood lining and all is nicer than the modern Rolex box. And here we've got very traditional, you've got your Roman numeral or Tiffany dial, or I should say Wimbledon. Sorry, not Tiffany. Tiffany's the color. Wimbledon is Roman numeral dial. And basically, it's a very classic piece. White face, Roman numerals, gold hands and indices, two-tone. This is pretty much your classic 36 millimeter Rolex. And a piece like this is going to run you about $5,000, give or take. We are not talking about a cheap piece of kit here. And it's not on par with a modern Rolex, but then again, neither is a vintage Ford Mustang, and you're paying for that too. The thing is that a vintage piece from a reputable brand is going to command a high value. Now, one of the notorious things about the old Rolexes is that the bracelets were kind of cheap, rolled steel and stamped sheet metal. Let's compare it to a modern. Now, size is a different issue completely, all right? But this is a modern Rolex 41, and you can see the difference. I mean, this is not a Jubilee, but these are solid links. The clasp is machined. It's just a better bracelet. In fact, modern Rolexes are lauded aggressively for their bracelets. So when you talk about, a vintage Rolex 36 in good quality, then all you're really talking about in differences is pretty much your bracelet and your size. Now, for a person like me, I'm not a big small watch fan because I have large hands, but that has nothing to do with my personal taste. Has nothing to do with what you want to wear on your wrist. Now, if you notice, see, for example, here I'm wearing a 42 millimeter Speedmaster on my wrist, you see, and you can see the size difference. Now, I can get away with the 36 with a suit, and that's what I've often said, is that a 36 millimeter watch, even if you have big hands, is a great suit watch because it is elegant and dainty, and it'll slide neatly under the collar and present itself well. And a two-tone like this is a great suit watch because then it'll you can mix your gold and your silver jewelry with this being kind of like the Rosetta Stone in the middle of it, combining the colors in something tasteful that you'd be actually willing to wear. Now, like I was saying, this is a $5,000, give or take, watch, vintage. This is from the 80s. I got this, my friend Gordon lent it to me. He actually got it as a sales prize. He used to be a car dealer before he bought his pub, and he must have been very successful because he used his sales wins to buy the pub, and obviously he's a good salesman to have won this as a sales award. Now, when you think about $5,000, obviously a 36 is an economical alternative to a modern 41, because a modern 41 is going to run you more than 10. But there are a lot of other watches in the $5,000 range that, you know, depending on how you look at it, you might consider superior, like the Omega Globemaster. This is the annual calendar, so it costs a little bit more than $5, but the standard Omega Globemaster, you can get one for around $5, and it will have these same features, the tungsten carbide bezel and all of the other niceness with the pie pan dial and just well-made piece. Or, for example, a Jaeger-LeCoultre Polaris. You can also get one used for around $5,000. All right, so these watches are roughly the same in market value, but I would make the argument that this Jaeger-LeCoultre is a better buy. But then that's all up to your tastes, what you want to spend your money on, and what you would like to see on your wrist. But I mean, let's go one more step. Here's a Chronomaster. Here's a Zenith Chronomaster. You can get one of these used for about $5,000, and this is a gorgeous dress piece with deployant buckle and alligator strap, open heart, high beat. So, you know, the question on whether or not to buy a vintage Rolex is completely up to you. It's a beautiful piece in and of itself, but in a competitive marketplace, you have to start asking yourself other questions. But at the end of the day, it's what you want to put on your wrist. So let's turn the camera around and close out the episode. So that was the Rolex 36, in this case two-tone, Wimbledon dial, white face, Rolex Datejust. A classic piece, one that you may or may not find worth owning, but definitely still has a strong footprint in the marketplace. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe. It really does help.